Tim Mendes Music and History. Some critics of music often believe that among the music gospels artists there is certain sameness. Generally lyrics, arrangements, and vocal performance are almost always similar. However, a new crop of gospel artists has come to stand out precisely for deciding to paddle against this tide. Among these artists we had the pleasure of interviewing Tim Mendes, 38. Tim is music producer, musician, composer, and performer. Born in the city of São Paulo, the economic heart of Brazil, the artist had his first contact with music when he was 7 years old. From gospel origin, Tim Mendes in his childhood accompanied with eyes and ears very attentive the rehearsals and presentation of his church's band. At the end of the service, little Tim escaped from his parents and soon was amongst the musicians to enjoy what would become his profession and pleasure. Then his father, Mr. John Mendes, began to observe his son's passion for music and immediately sent him to study music. The artist's marriage to his main instrument, the guitar, completed 32 years in 2017. In 1988, when he was only 10, his family moved to Hortolândia, a small town in the interior of the state of São Paulo. There were not many opportunities to study music as in big cities. However, it didn't stop him from moving on. His father traveled constantly to São Paulo, and from there he brought the albums of the musician called Janeiro. Tim would put the album Janeiro and his guitar on the phonograph and soon he was playing the whole hymn book of the church. Those records, until then, were his only source to develop himself as a musician. The artist says that he had a quiet childhood, he used to play football with other children, and other child's games as well, but above all this, he always loves to study. Tim Mendes always took his studies very seriously, especially the study of music. I studied music 9 hours a day, I just stopped to eat, he points out. Often Mrs. Miriam, his mother, had to intercede. In the time of school test she directed him to study less music and dedicate more time to the school subjects. That was no problem for Tim, since as a child he tried to fulfill his duties, he knew it would be a differential for his whole life. In the yard where his family lived in São Paulo City there were 3 houses and a church. The first performance happened right there in that little church. There a group of sisters get together every Wednesday in the morning. They prayed and sang to praise the Lord. From a stair, the future musician was enjoying the sisters singing. But something was missing. Of course, the instrumental accompaniment was missing. So Tim volunteered to join the group with his guitar. Now the group was complete, between hits and mistakes, the boy was pushing himself to the fullest. The sisters were always very patient and caring with me, he emphasizes. In the same church, there were no musicians at nighttime worship, just a brother who played from time to time. Another opportunity and Tim didn't let it go. That was when he developed his musical talents even more. He essayed the hymns day after day and started to help the church. The church that I attended before had already a band, they was good musicians, there I would never have a chance, he emphasizes. In Hortolândia, the family began to attend a local church. There Tim met Enoch Rodolfo and Aeneas, both sons of a newcomer pastor. One of the boys played guitar and the other played double bass. Enoch was a boy extremely adept to guitars, he played a lot and studied by his own, so, he gave me some good tips in the beginning, he points out. The 3 boys started get together to play, and it was his first experience in a band. When Tim was 11, his father took him to learn trumpet in a course offered by the church. At the age of 14, Tim returns to music lessons and musical writing. I spent 2 years studying what I already did in practice, but I didn't understand how it worked in theory, he adds. Some time later, he attended the Music Conservatory of Tatuí, where he studied for 2 years. But he had to stop the course for financial infeasibility. However, in his stay in Tatuí, Tim met some students who also taught music. Among them, he met the guitarist Marcelo Modesto, a young student came from Campinas. So, Tim started taking classes with Marcelo Modesto in Campinas, because it was near Hordalandia. Modesto is a great musician, a great guy. He opened the music to me, the way he taught me allowed me to become self-taught, he emphasizes. When he was 16, he began to teach guitar in a small room in the backyard of his house. During this period the classes he taught became his main source of income. The money he used to pay for his data processing course and bought his things. The music process flows gave Tim the foundation needed to become a competent music producer. At the age of 19, the artist ventured into an occasional job as security under the influence of a cousin. He liked the area and on the advice of his father he started to consider a police officer career. Both he and his father believed that there would be an opportunity for him to join the police's band. His father always supported him in the music career, encouraging him to take courses and buying his instruments. However, Mr. John Mendes knew that it was difficult to live from music and engaging in the police's band would be an excellent alternative. Although he passed all tests, Tim didn't pass the physical test and the project to join the police's band was discontinued. Despite the love of art, the artist had other professions, he still couldn't get his incomes completely from the music career. He worked for a certain time at a bank on the night shift. At that time, I usually came home from work in the morning, slept a little, teach in the afternoon and studied music at night, he adds. His greatest musical influence was the black music, gospel, jazz, and North American choirs. On one occasion, Modesto advised him to play jazz, because it was the style that Tim liked and studied more. Modesto told me, "Man, you have a pretty fine jazz performance, but you have to play it, you cannot study a style without playing it at gigs." He comments. Through a group of studies, Tim begins to play jazz and begin to perform in the evening, he did freelance with bands from other genres as well. The artist adds that although jazz is his favorite music style, he have no musical prejudgments, he respects all genres. Why in the various styles there are good and bad musicians. I really value that musician who doesn't care if he knows a lot or little, but with what he knows he makes a sound, and does it with love, he points out. When Tim was 24, he married Silvana, a girl he met in the church and who would become his companion all life long, the greatest supporter of his music career and the mother of his two sons, Diego and Bernardo. At one stage of his life the artist went through difficult times of health. However, his wife was always there, caring and supportive. Today I got to where I got in the music career, because of her, he says. With enough musical knowledge, Tim Mendes started to be called by musical producers to participate in recordings on CDs and DVDs of other artists such as Prisma Brazil, Tom DeVita, Vocal Louvre, Kenya Rodriguez, Julia Ribeiro, Sarah Estevao, Jay Silva, among others. The opportunity to set up his own studio came when his friend Charbel, sound engineer, with whom he did several jobs, decided to shut down the studio and suggested that Tim could buy some of his equipments to set up his own studio. So he adapted a part of the house where he lived and went on to produce for many independent artists. Today Tim Mendes, in a new and well-equipped studio, is well known and well connected in the musical environment by the diverse works realized like musician and also like musical producer. Asked about his musical writing processes, the artist reveals that all his compositions are based on life experiences and his relationship with the Lord. Sometimes I can communicate more with the Lord by singing than by speaking. I am not a religious person, I am a person who loves the Lord above all things, he emphasizes. The CD Tim Mendes, My Prayer, 2012, brought a different musicality to the gospel genre in Brazil. Its instrumental is marked with elements of jazz and American black music, its lyrics bring the theme of peace, love, and worship to the Lord. In his compositions, Tim always seeks to emphasize the Lord's benevolences by spreading the gospel without falling into religious fanaticism. I see the gospel with the simplicity as Jesus was, and the respect for the neighbor has to be independent of the belief of each one, he says. To learn more about Tim Mendes, visit Tim Mendes fan page. by Zel Florizel. You can find more indie artists' histories on zelflorizel.blogspot.com.